Hello ladies and gentlemen, Top Hat Wrestling Man here, and in today's content we are going to be diving in headfirst and taking an Olympic sized look at one of the least told stories and one of the most overlooked careers in the entire dark and mysterious annals of professional wrestling history. Today we're going to be examining the life and times, the rise and fall, the trials and tribulations of your Olympic hero Kurt Angle's older brother Eric Angle. One of 6 children, Eric was born in Mount Lebanon Township, Pennsylvania in 1967 to David and Jackie Angle. Several of the Angle children had actually kept their private lives and identities very hidden from the public, so little is known about them. But as far as we can tell, Eric is the middle child in the Angle sibling clan. What we do know, however, is that tragedy is something that the Angles have had to grow accustomed to over the years. Just after his 17th birthday, Eric's father was tragically killed at work, leaving Eric's mother Jackie to raise 6 children by herself. David Angle was a crane operator at various construction sites and was killed in a work accident on the 29th of August 1984. This left an emotional hole at the core of the entire Angle family that could never really be fully repaired. This is most apparent with Eric's only sister, Leanne, who turned to drugs and sadly died of a heroin overdose at age just 43. Again, very little is known about Leanne other than that tragic fact, but one member of the Angle siblings who didn't manage to keep things quite as private and out of the public eye is older brother Dave. I'm only referring to him as Dave to save any confusion with the previously mentioned David Angle. I'll be honest, I don't know whether Dave likes to be called Dave or not. Dave, if you're watching and you don't like to be called Dave, I apologise. Sorry Dave. Quite frankly, I think he probably has bigger things to worry about though than whether a handsome man on YouTube calls him Dave or not. Because on September 8th, 2016, Dave Angle was convicted of killing his wife and sentenced to 2.5 to 10 years in prison. After a long and protracted court case that in media coverage his famous brother was often mentioned in, David pleaded guilty in order to be granted some leniency and to try and get the initial charge of homicide changed to voluntary manslaughter. Supposedly, there was a very heated domestic incident involving copious amounts of alcohol which resulted in Donna attacking Dave and Dave suffocating her in either self-defense or retaliation during the ensuing scuffle. It's fairly clear that drama, tragedy and the Angle family seem to all too often go hand in hand. Kurt's varied and numerous personal issues and demons are hardly secret and have been the source of much scrutiny over the years, but surely Eric's story and journey through pro wrestling is a far less volatile one, right? Well, it started innocuously enough. Eric was a skilled and competent high school amateur wrestler, making the Mount Lebanon High team and later going on to wrestle collegiately for Waynesburg University. The problem is, being a skilled and competent amateur wrestler doesn't really count for all that much when your younger brother is one of the greatest amateur wrestlers the entire country had ever produced. The incredibly gifted and just insanely athletic Kurt outshone Eric at every turn, and as we know, went on to win an Olympic gold medal with a broken frickin' neck. Now I'm sure Eric was very frickin' happy for Kurt, but it must be quite strange to be so far behind your younger brother when you're so close in age, particularly as Eric was really a bit of a freak athlete himself. In almost any other family, he would have certainly been the alpha sibling, the one that gets to win all the awards and pick on all the others, but that's just not realistic when your brother is Kurt bloody Angle. After Kurt transitioned into professional wrestling at the end of the 90s, it was pretty much inevitable that Eric would follow along in some capacity, and sure enough, like a bad smell, follow along he did. I'm probably being a bit mean with the bad smell quip because Eric's debut was actually a pretty entertaining and rather shocking one. There's not many superstars that get to make their debut in a huge match at the Survivor Series, one of the biggest pay-per-view events of the year, but that's exactly what happened with Eric. Well, it's maybe not exactly what happened, but it's close enough. During Kurt's match with The Undertaker at the year 2000 Survivor Series, the dastardly and cowardly Kurt hid under the ring with The Undertaker in quick pursuit. The Undertaker, grabbing what he thought was Kurt's leg, unceremoniously dragged the man from under the ring and back between the ropes. The Undertaker hit his devastating last ride finisher for what would surely be an easy 1-2-3 on his barely conscious victim. When referee Earl Hebner went down to make the pin, however, he noticed that it wasn't Kurt at all. Rather, a switcheroo had occurred, and The Undertaker had laid out an as of yet unnamed man. While a furious Undertaker questioned the referee about just what the bloomin' heck was going on, the real Kurt Angle slid in behind him and rolled him up for the win like the sneaky snake that he is. Kurt and Eric had used the fact they looked strikingly similar to each other in both hair, features and physique to their advantage and pulled off one of the most ingenious double crosses of all time. The sneaky bloody rapscallion, Eric's second WWE appearance, would happen the very next night on Monday Night Raw, where he once again appeared alongside his brother, being the recipient of an Undertaker beatdown, letting the dead man get some comeuppance and a bit of his heat back. It wasn't long after this that Eric signed a developmental deal with WWE and was shipped off to Ohio Valley Wrestling so he could sharpen his skills, learn the WWE way and hopefully join his brother on TV. Unfortunately, Eric was plagued with the same issues that followed him throughout his amateur career. The issue of Kurt's rather sizable and pretty much unavoidable shadow. Despite showing aptitude for the wrestling business and for the physical side of things, he didn't have Kurt's charisma and he didn't have Kurt's athleticism, so opportunities looked somewhat limited. Those opportunities became even more limited when Eric suffered a ligament injury in his arm. Now at first Eric wasn't too concerned as the injury was meant to be sorted with one fairly simple surgery and one quick recovery process, but apparently the Angle curse decided to strike again as problems with the first surgery led to further complications, which led to necessitating several more surgeries, which in turn led to him requiring even more surgeries. By the end of the process he had 9 total surgeries. 9 bloody surgeries, and a whole year on the shelf. Eric did eventually return to OVW to work with the likes of Christopher Nowinski and the Basham brothers, but all his time away from the ring and from training only exacerbated problems that were already there, which meant his opportunities may have become even more limited in the process. However, on the March 13th, 2003 episode of SmackDown, Eric was handed a lifeline by Kurt as they once again got to pull the switcheroo gimmick. This time on the quite frankly terrifying beast incarnate Brock Lesnar. This match between Kurt and Brock was leading into WrestleMania 19 and was for Kurt's WWE Championship. It was fairly common knowledge amongst hardcore WWE fans at this point that Kurt was due for frickin' neck surgery, and so the general consensus was that he would be dropping the title before WrestleMania. This match was set up to both swerve the WWE fans into thinking Kurt was about to lose the title and to allow Kurt to retain without taking any bumps or doing any unnecessary damage to his currently extremely delicate neck before WrestleMania came around. This time the Angle brothers' treachery was possibly even more ingenious. After Kurt's entrance during his familiar praying in the corner pose, Eric very quickly and off camera switched places with him and resumed praying in the corner with his hood up, just like Kurt had been doing. Brock Lesnar swiftly grabbed him and gave him a bloody good thrashing with his rather painful looking and really quite barbaric F5 manoeuvre. This time it was Brock who noticed something was awry as he jumped up from his attempted pinfall looking all confused. A second distraction on the outside of the ring from 2 of Kurt's other lackeys, Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas, provided enough of a ruse for Kurt to swap back with Eric, unbeknownst to their gargantuan, sweating opponent. Kurt was then able to get the surprise pinfall on the dishevelled Lesnar, which of course left him rather miffed and looking even angrier than he normally did. This led to Eric's next and final ever WWE appearance on the following week's episode of SmackDown, where he appeared in an angle with Kurt and Brock. I'd been trying to avoid using the word angle unless it was in reference to Eric's family name, but I just went and did it anyway. Deal with it. This time, comeuppance wasn't on the cards for the hero of the piece, as the big brute Brock was outsmarted by the devious Angle bros after he was uppercutted right in his meat and 2 Lesnars, and choked out by Kurt, And just like that, Eric's WWE dream was over. He made no further appearances for the company and was released soon after. Hardly the Hall of Fame career that he was surely expecting after a handful of developmental matches and 4 very brief appearances alongside his younger shadow brother. But was Eric going to be deterred? Was this the end of our plucky hero's professional wrestling journey? Was he just going to give up? He's a bloody Angle. Of course he wasn't. Eric showed up at a Pennsylvania-based indie company by the name of International Wrestling Cartel in August of 2003 against Bubba the Bulldog. I would just like to clarify that this was neither Bubba Ray Dudley or the British Bulldog. This was Bubba the Bulldog. A second match for the same company followed the next month, as Eric put in a losing effort against Jimmy Vegas. Yes, this is the Jimmy Vegas, and no, of course I've never heard of him either. Then finally, the following month, in October of 2003, Eric had his 3rd match for IWC, and what would turn out to be his last match ever, as he got injured during a tag match and decided to call a day on his professional wrestling career. So that was it. With a sigh and a whimper, the brother of one of the greatest amateurs and one of the greatest professional wrestlers ever called time on his pretty insignificant career. But is that where the story ends? Does the end of his professional wrestling career also signify the last we'll see of him in the public eye? Well, unfortunately for him, but fortunately for those of us that get our kicks from salacious stories and enjoy the suffering of others, no. Returning to his amateur wrestling roots, Eric took up coaching and became head coach of a local Pittsburgh junior amateur wrestling team, which to be honest sounds like about the last place you'd expect any kind of crazy drama to unfold. Unfortunately, crazy drama may as well be Eric Angle's middle name, as in March 2019 he made the press again for picking up one of his students by the throat and throwing him back down to the mat during an amateur tournament. I would say allegedly, but wouldn't you know it, the whole thing was caught on camera and it looked pretty clear as day to anyone that has a functioning pair of eyes. Eric was charged with simple assault and became disgraced from the amateur tournament scene. The charges ended up being dropped in July, but Eric's busy 2019 was only just getting started. In September, Eric was indicted along with 3 other men for distributing anabolic steroids over the dark web and to local bodybuilders. All 3 men sold controlled substances before shipping them via UPS under false names and were members of the Quantum Drug Trafficking Organisation. US District James Gwynn sentenced Eric to 2 years probation and a fine of $5,000 for his part in the sale of the imported Chinese steroids. It almost seems like a bit of a slap on the wrist when you think about what the sentencing could have been, but I think we can all agree that Eric has been an exceptionally silly sausage at times. It seems almost naive to think that this is the end of the Eric Angle story, given how often drama seems to follow him around. So who knows if this is the final part of his public tale, or just the end of chapter 2. It seems only time will tell, but Eric's branch of the Angle family tree certainly is a fascinating one. So I guess, ladies and gentlemen, that was the untold story of Eric Angle, the Olympic gold medalist's older brother. Let me know in the comment section what you thought of today's content and what other obscure names in WWE history that you think we should look at next. If you are new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell for regular wrestling history content that will be uploaded in the future. Yeah, cheerio.